He may even identify himself with it and believe that he is what he appears to be.
All right. Welcome to the NCE Study Guide. My name is Glenn Ostland, newly graduated therapist and aspiring AI puppet master, apparently. And today we held our first free study group where listeners like you can get on a Zoom call and share experiences, questions, support. It was a great time. It really was. And we'll be holding these 1-hour sessions weekly on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. The calls are recorded and then they're shared with all the members of our Slack group for anyone who's not able to actually make it to the call itself. Now, if you'd like to join, just email me at ncestuddyguide@gmail.com and I'll send you a link to sign up. It's as simple as that. So, here's what you're going to hear in today's AI Puppet Show. I took the recording of our Zoom call. I uploaded it to Notebook LM. I asked the AI study buddies to summarize and discuss, and then boom. Less than 2 minutes later, here's what they said. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to sift through information, find those key insights for you, basically help you get informed efficiently without feeling totally swamped.
Exactly. And this deep dive is really geared towards, anyone navigating the mental health field, especially if the NCE, the National Counselor Exam, is on your radar.
Right. Today we're digging into a recent study group session. This was from the free NCE Study Guide Podcast.
Yeah, the idea is to pull out the really valuable stuff, the experiences people shared, questions they had. It's useful for anyone prepping for the exam or just, entering the field.
And what's really cool about the NCE Study Guide Podcast and these groups is that it's all volunteer run. It's peers supporting peers.
Totally. It's got that grassroots feel, just helping each other get through this pretty significant stuff.
Yeah. And if listeners want to maybe join a future session, the email is ncestuddyguide@gmail.com.
Good to know. So ncestuddyguide@gmail.com. Okay.
So let's dive in. One of the first things that came up in the group was something a lot of people probably feel but maybe don't say. Just how tough the NCE actually is.
Yeah.
And that, lack of open chat about the challenge, the uncertainty even after you take it.
Oh, definitely. There's sometimes this pressure to act like it's no big deal, but it is a high-stakes exam. People in the group mentioned feeling hesitant to talk about doubts or anxieties.
Right, which can make you feel pretty isolated if you are struggling.
Exactly. And that leads right into Amy's story, which was, wow.
Yeah, talk about unpredictable. She needed a 93 to pass, right? And scored a 92.
Whew, so close. That's painful.
And then on top of that, during the test, a severe storm warning. They had to evacuate to the basement.
No way, during the exam.
Yep. Lost a huge chunk of time, over 5 hours, total disruption, apparently. It's amazing she even got a 92 under those conditions.
Seriously. That's incredible pressure. Did they do anything about that?
Thankfully, yes. They granted her a free retake, which is a huge relief, obviously.
Well, that's good. It shows they do account for, major disruptions sometimes. It's not common, but it happens.
It really highlights that you need to be ready for anything on test day, not just the questions.
Yeah.
Mental flexibility seems key.
Absolutely. Expect the unexpected. Try to stay calm. Good takeaway.
And then you contrast that whole ordeal with Glenn's experience at the testing center itself.
Right. He said his Pearson Center was pretty good. Well-maintained. Staff were okay.
But even then, there were little stressors, like the security, the palm scans.
The palm scans. Yeah.
Which, ironically, malfunctioned for Amy when she came back from a break.
Oh, you're kidding. After everything else.
Yep. Cost her another 15 minutes. And the clock doesn't stop for breaks or, scanner malfunctions.
Wow. That's rough. It just shows how varied the experience can be, even with standardized testing. Little administrative things can add so much stress.
Totally. Something to mentally prep for, maybe? Those little potential hiccups?
Good point. Don't let the small stuff derail you if you can help it.
So let's shift gears a bit. Glenn's motivation for even starting the study guides in the first place. It was interesting.
Yeah, he wanted a way to absorb info passively, right? Like while driving or walking?
Exactly. Using tools like Notebook LM, AI-generated podcasts, standard stuff now almost. But then he found this combo listening to the study material with binaural beat meditations.
Okay, that is interesting. Binaural beats for relaxation and maybe focus combined with the content.
Yeah. The idea was like creating a more relaxed state for passive learning. Making the brain more receptive, maybe?
It's an innovative approach. Trying to leverage both cognitive intake and a calm mental state. Did people find it helpful?
Well, Glenn felt it had a positive impact, not just for studying, but he even saw connections in his clinical work.
Really? How
He
so?
mentioned it reinforcing person-centered principles, like unconditional positive regard, in his work with domestic violence offender groups and individual therapy.
Wow. So the study process itself kind of helped internalize core counseling values. That's actually quite profound.
Isn't it? It shows how learning and practice can really feed into each other.
That's a great point. It's not just about passing a test, it's about becoming a better therapist.
Which led to this whole discussion on learning styles. Because Amy found just sitting and reading wasn't her thing.
Right, she's more of an auditory learner. Listening worked better.
Whereas Glenn, later on, shifted to listening with the script, taking notes, looking for patterns, more active.
Yeah, a more focused approach as the test got closer. It really underlines how crucial it is to know how you learn best.
Totally. What works for one person might be useless for another. You got to find your groove.
Definitely. Experiment early on. Try listening, reading, active recall, flashcards, whatever. Find your fit.
Then there was the talk about the Purple Book. You know, that thick study guide some schools give out.
Ah, yes. The infamous Purple Book.
The concern was, well, just covering that might not perfectly align with what's actually on the NCE.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Sometimes those materials are broad, maybe not focused enough on the exam-specific style or content distribution.
And both Amy and Glenn really emphasized the value of internship experience. That practical knowledge is gold.
Oh, absolutely critical. Internships bridge that gap between textbook theory and real-world application. You see how things actually play out.
So for students listening, soak up everything you can during your internship. It really helps prepare you.
Best advice. Ask questions, reflect, connect it back to what you're learning.
Okay, what about Lily? She's planning way ahead, starting to study early because of test anxiety.
Right, even though her advisor apparently suggested waiting.
Which I thought was interesting. But Lily knows herself, right? She wants deep understanding, not just cramming,
Yeah.
and wants to manage that anxiety proactively.
And that makes total sense. Trusting your own instincts about your learning pace and needs is so important. Starting early for long-term absorption versus last-minute panic, usually a better strategy if you have anxiety.
Yeah, it validates different timelines. Not everyone thrives on pressure.
Exactly. Find your own pace. Don't feel rushed if you don't need to be.
Glenn also talked about his own pre-exam panic moment.
Uh-huh. We've all been there.
And the advice he got was really helpful. Trust your prep and try to see the NCE as just an assessment of where you are now.
Right. Not like this final, terrifying judgment.
Exactly. And, retaking is an option if needed. It's part of the learning process.
That mindset shift is huge for managing anxiety. Viewing it as assessment, not Armageddon. Trust the work you put in.
And remember, it's okay if the first time isn't the time. It's a journey.
Such a healthy perspective, confidence in your prep, but also acceptance that it's just one step.
And Amy, who's taking it in May, also felt that early exposure helps. It reinforces Lily's point.
Seems like a common theme. Early gradual exposure can be beneficial.
So that the conversation shifted to the actual NCE content. What surprised people?
Okay, this was interesting. Both Glenn and Amy mentioned a lot of career counseling questions, maybe more than they expected.
Career counseling.
And also a significant amount on group therapy.
Group therapy, too. Good intel for people studying now. Maybe dedicate some extra focus there.
Seems wise. Don't just focus on, say, individual theories. Broaden out to career and group contexts.
It's about paying attention to those trends reported by recent takers, isn't it? Gives you an edge.
For sure.
They also mention skills-based questions, things like active listening, using silence.
Ah, the fundamentals. But not just defining them.
Exactly. It's about why you use them.
Yeah.
The ethical reasons, the practical application in therapy, not just, oh, I feel awkward being silent.
Right. Understanding the purpose behind the skill. It shows the applied nature of the exam. They want to know you can actually do counseling ethically and effectively.
So when studying skills, think why, not just what.
Good way to put it. Why this skill in this situation with this client?
Which then led to a practical suggestion. Maybe future resources should cover test day logistics more.
Oh, definitely. Based on Amy's storm and the Stanner issues and Glenn's mention of security.
Yeah, and things like the clock keeps running during bathroom breaks. That's important to know.
Totally. Those practicalities, security, breaks, potential disruptions, they're often overlooked in study prep, but they can really impact your focus and anxiety levels.
Knowing the rules of the center beforehand seems like a must.
Yeah, maybe even scope out the location if you can, like you said. Reduce those day of unknowns.
There was also a useful clarification about group therapy stages.
Ah, yeah, distinguishing between the different models.
Right, like the storming-norming model that describes how the group itself develops, right? The team dynamic.
Exactly. Initial conflicts, sorting out roles, then settling in, group development.
Versus models like pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, maintenance.
Which are about an individual's readiness to change their own behavior. Stages of change.
So 2 distinct concepts. Crucial not to mix them up on the exam.
Key distinction. One's about group process, the other's individual change readiness.
Got it. Amy also mentioned still wrestling a bit with validity and reliability.
Those assessment concepts can be tricky.
Yeah, but the general feeling was, while they're important, maybe a super deep dive into psychometrics isn't the absolute core of the NCE.
Well, you definitely need a foundational grasp. Like validity, does the test measure what it says it measures?
Right.
Reliability, does it give consistent results?
Right. The basics.
But maybe not the really complex statistical calculations, especially since state rules on who can administer certain assessments vary anyway.
So understand the concepts and their implications, but don't get totally bogged down unless your program really hammered it home.
Focus on the practical meaning in counseling, I'd say.
The group also briefly touched on just, different study habits, how some programs like Glenn's online one didn't have oral exams.
Right, lots of variation in program.
And the importance of KREP accreditation.
Oh yeah, that's huge for license portability if you ever plan to move states. Check if your program has it or if it's provisional or something.
Definitely. Can save headaches later.
Big time.
A really key point about the NCE format came up too.
Which was?
It leans heavily on case studies that make you integrate knowledge from different areas.
So less about just recalling like who developed CBT and more about applying concepts to a client scenario.
Exactly. Synthesizing info from different theories, different domains, human growth, ethics, group, career, all applied to a case.
That makes sense. It mirrors actual counseling practice, right? You don't deal with issues in neat little theoretical boxes.
So when studying, think integration. How do these different pieces fit together for this client?
Practice applying theories to sample cases. That sounds like really solid prep.
And just quickly on structure, 2 100-question sections.
Right, with one optional 15-minute break in between.
And crucially, you can't go back to section 1 once you start section 2.
Good reminder. Gotta manage your time within each section. No going back.
And retakes are possible, but usually cost money each time. Amy's free one was definitely an exception due to the circumstances.
Yeah, standard procedures, you pay again. So, good to know the rules. Pace yourself.
Rosa raised a great question about using silence in therapy.
Beyond just awkward pauses.
Yeah, connecting it to making space for the client self-discovery, how it differs in directive versus client-centered approaches.
It's such a powerful tool when used intentionally. Gives the client room to process, reflect, lead. It really aligns with that client-centered philosophy.
It's about creating space, not just filling airtime.
Exactly. Empowering the client. Good discussion point.
Looking ahead, it sounds like the study group itself is pretty responsive. Glenn mentioned using AI summaries of the sessions.
Oh, cool. To see what topics keep coming up.
Yeah, to identify common needs and then build future study modules around those specific areas.
That's smart. Using participant feedback to directly shape the content. Very collaborative.
Shows the value of that peer-to-peer learning environment, doesn't it?
Totally. Everyone learns from everyone else's questions and struggles.
And participants were apparently okay with having anonymized snippets shared in future podcast episodes.
Oh, that's great. Hearing real voices, real experiences, that can be so relatable and helpful for listeners.
Makes it feel less abstract.
For sure.
Rosa also put in a request for a future dive into Carl Jung.
Jung. Okay. Relating him to Freud, psychodynamic theory.
Yeah, broadening out those concepts. Definitely something we can look into for a future deep dive for everyone.
Good suggestion. We're always looking for topics listeners find valuable.
And just a reminder for listeners, if you have test anxiety or other needs, look into test accommodations. They exist for a reason.
Absolutely crucial. Don't hesitate to explore those options.
We heard Glenn took about 1.5 hours. Total time is around 3 hours. But Amy's experience shows that can vary wildly.
Right. And the flagging feature, you can flag questions to review later within a section.
Though some people find that increases anxiety, others find it helpful. Personal preference.
Yeah, maybe try it out in practice tests. See if it works for you. Know yourself.
Ultimately, I think hearing these firsthand stories from Amy and Glenn is just invaluable for people still prepping.
Oh, definitely. It makes it real.
And Amy being so open about not passing the first time, but having a positive attitude about retrying. That really helps normalize the challenge, I think.
It really does. It takes away some of the stigma or fear. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to try again. You're not alone.
And the advice to use multiple resources. Find your best way to study. That came through loud and clear, too. Not just the purple book or just listening, but what works for you.
Exactly. Mix and match. Find your optimal strategy.
Plus, the call for specific requests in future sessions like Rosa's Young idea, that sounds great for making the group even more focused.
Yeah, bringing specific topics ensures everyone gets their pressing questions addressed. It's that shared experience, peer support. It's just so vital for getting through something like the NCE.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be, yes, the NCE is a hurdle, a significant one.
For sure, but definitely surmountable.
Right. And community support, shared learning, understanding the application, not just the facts. Those things really matter.
Absolutely. And we got some practical nuggets today, too. The focus on career and group, the importance of the why behind skills, thinking about test day realities.
Keep those in mind as you study. And again, if you want to join that community, email ncestudiguide@gmail.com. Connect with others on the same path.
It's a great resource, sounds like. Highly recommended.
Okay, so here's a final thought to chew on as you continue your own prep journey. What's the one specific NCE question mark you have right now? Or the one content area that feels, the muddiest?
Yeah. Think about that, because bringing that specific thing to a study group or even just focusing your own efforts there, that could be really beneficial. Your question might unlock something for someone else too.
1, 2, 3.
All right, and while you're here, I'm going to share another project with you. This is called the DV Brain Change Meditation Podcast, and it's one that I've created for my domestic violence therapy groups. These are for court-mandated domestic violence offenders, and I've created these meditations that are designed to help calm and soothe and reinforce the information that I'm sharing with them each week. So you might find this valuable as well. I think everybody would find it valuable. But I want to share that here. You'll learn a little bit more about me as well in the process. And once again, I had a great time today with the study group. And if there are any of you that are thinking about joining, please send me an email and I'll give you the information to join that Slack group. And we can help each other or help others. How's that? Hello and welcome to the DV Brain Change Meditation Podcast series. My name is Glenn Ostland. And I'm the one creating these meditations. Now, before I go any further, I want to express my appreciation to Ronald and Patricia Potter Efron, the creators of the Brain Change curriculum. Their work forms the backbone of the domestic violence offender treatment group that I lead as a therapist. And it's also the inspiration behind this entire meditation series. But this podcast is a little different. To really understand what I'm doing here, it might help to know a little bit about me. Back in the 90s, when I was in my 20s, I earned a master's degree in folklore and mythology. That experience profoundly shaped the way I see the world. It taught me to look beyond surface appearances, beyond form, and to focus on function. Think about the Cinderella story. There are versions of it all over the world. And if you just compared those versions side by side without context, you might think you were looking at completely different tales. But when you step back and you look at the larger pattern, the function of the story, the way everything fits together, not only the way it's told, but the way it gets used by the people who tell them, well, you start to see the same bones underneath of everything. Like patterns like separation, transformation, reintegration. The characters might change, the details might shift, but the emotional arc and social purpose remain remarkably consistent. That idea, function over form, is at the heart of this project. And one of the things that I learned from my time studying folklore that maybe most directly connects with the way that I'm approaching these meditations is what scholars like Arnold van Gennep and Victor Turner called rites of passage. These follow a 3-stage pattern: separation, liminality, and reintegration. So first, an individual marks themselves apart from the group. They separate themselves somehow. Maybe they're wearing different clothes. Maybe they put on some earbuds. but they separate themselves somehow. And by doing that, they then enter into a liminal phase, a kind of time out of time, in between transformational space. This is where the magic happens. This is where change happens. Because finally, in the third stage, they return, reintegrated, transformed. Weddings are like this. Graduations are like this. Funerals, to some degree, are like this. These are all communal rites of passage. But what Turner called the liminal experience, that time out of time, that magical, often disorienting period of transition, that's kind of what fascinates me the most. That place, that space where change happens. And that's what these meditations are for me. They're a personal rite of passage in a way. They're not about integrating back into society necessarily, although I can see how they might be used for something like that. But for me, it's more about integrating within myself, bringing the conscious and unconscious parts of myself into a sort of dialogue, healing inner conflicts. Taking a page from Internal Family Systems, I see the mind as a collection of voices, beliefs, sensations, some wounded, some wise. And these meditations create a space for all and any of those parts to speak. That's the function that these soundscapes serve for me. They help me slow things down enough so that I can witness what's going on inside, to notice the filters through which I interpret the world, so that I can learn not to take my thoughts and emotions as absolute truth when they come up in the moment, but I recognize them as my personal truths, things that color everything that I see, but it also helps me separate myself from them in a way that I can really be there for others and curious about others and where our differences are. So I use these meditations as a kind of training ground for my mind in a way. Because the more I understand my own inner patterns, the more choice I have, the more presence that I can cultivate consciously, intentionally, rather than just shutting down and letting my automatic self just kind of take over. So that's partly why I like to think about these meditations as audio Rorschach ink blots. They're not telling you what to think. They're not leading you down a fixed path. Instead, they're designed to be an open space for curiosity and awareness and transformation. So they invite you to explore the kaleidoscopic imprint of life upon the fabric of your mind. And yeah, that might sound like a mouthful. It might be a strange concept if you haven't been swimming in the waters that I've been swimming in as long as I have, but that's okay. You don't need to understand everything right away. You don't really need to understand intellectually any of this in order for the meditations to really work in a deep way. So if you can feel what these meditations are doing for you, there's some real value in that, because here's the practical piece. So I've been telling you I've created these for myself. A few months ago, I was wrapping up my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I was completing my internship. And I started experimenting with binaural audio beats, just as a personal form of self-care. I learned how to design these meditations using specific frequencies, layered sounds, stereo panning, really diving deep into the art and science of how sound affects the nervous system. For fun, as one does. And just so you know, a few years ago I received some training in neuro-linguistic programming, which is NLP, and hypnotherapy, which I think of as a kind of, guided self-meditation, if that makes any sense. But these meditations that I'm using use techniques borrowed from Milton Erickson and NLP that are designed to gently influence a self-hypnotic state, especially when combined with these effects of the binaural audio beats and the neural entrainment and different little sound things that I play with in here, which I consider all kind of texture to this audio Rorschach ink blot. Because what this does is open up a space inside where Your awareness sharpens. Your focus deepens. And your nervous system relaxes into a receptive, creative flow. I play with pacing, with tone, with rhythm, sometimes layering voices from ear to ear. So don't be surprised if, after listening to several of these, you start noticing that you can fine-tune your focus better than you thought possible ever before. You might even find yourself able to follow overlapping conversations or dual perspectives more clearly, or feeling subtle shifts in how you understand things. It's something I like to call a kaleidoscope of sound, a living, layered experience of attention that invites transformation from the inside out. And also, I like the word kaleidoscope. So, I started bringing these meditations into my domestic violence therapy groups. Now, each DV group session starts with a check-in. Everyone shares a little bit about what's going on in their lives. Then we all put in our headphones. You're all encouraged to bring headphones and listen to a meditation together. It takes about 10 minutes. And what happens next, I found, is pretty remarkable, because the room gets really quiet and you can just kind of see the relaxation in the shoulders that are like drooping, and just like people being given permission to relax and just really doing it. And so they soften. And then the conversation that follows is usually deeper, more honest, more reflective. Everybody seems to get a little more out of it. And I want to say this directly. It is really a privilege to work with the men in these groups. It's a privilege to witness them open up, recognize shared patterns, and see themselves mirrored in the stories of the others. It's a privilege to hold space while they explore the experiences that shaped them, experiences that still echo through their thoughts, their emotions and behaviors. And it's profoundly moving to see them begin to recognize that the strength they've been taught their entire lives to pursue doesn't have to be force or dominance. It can be internal. It can be the strength of self-awareness and focus, the strength of honesty, the strength of responsibility and protection and restraint. For many of these men, having the label of offender forces them to confront parts of themselves that they might never have looked at otherwise. And many have expressed a real, genuine gratitude, not for what they did that brought them into the program, but for the opportunity to reflect and to grow and to change their brains and their lives in ways that they didn't think were possible. Having that experience that I've had with them, it's why I've created this podcast, to try somehow to amplify this experience, to share these through meditations, not just with my clients, but with anyone else who might stumble across them and feel drawn in. So there are 52 sessions in the Brain Change curriculum. Maybe I'll do 52 meditations for this series, one for each session, we'll see. But before we jump in, I want to give you just a little bit more background, especially about how binaural beats work and why they matter. And I also kind of consider this section my informed consent section because I want you to really understand what these meditations are doing, because it's not just inconsequential sound, as if anything is inconsequential sound. So when you listen to two slightly different tones, one in each ear, your brain creates a third tone. Not externally, but internally. That's the binaural beat. And depending on the frequency of that beat that's going on by your neurons pulsing together. This living system of living things in your brain that are pulsing together like a wave in a stadium. Your brain begins to synchronize. This is called neural entrainment, and it's supported by a growing body of scientific research. There's good evidence, especially in studies using alpha and theta beats, that this technique can reduce anxiety, improve mood, enhance sleep quality, and even sharpen cognitive focus. Most of the therapeutic outcomes are modest, but real. And, most importantly, there are no known risks for listening to binaural beats when used properly. They're non-invasive, easy to access, and safe for most people. Just don't listen while driving or operating heavy machinery, especially when the meditations are designed to induce a trance-like or deeply relaxed state. So, that's what this podcast is all about. It's about using sound to create a personal liminal space. A place where you can step outside the ordinary, slow down your nervous system, and experience transformation from the inside out. Each episode, moving forward, will mostly just be the meditation itself. But this one, the orientation, is for those who want to know where this all came from and why and how I'm doing it. So now, I invite you to experience it for yourself. And please remember, these are meditations using styles and techniques I created for myself because I found them effective for me. But not everyone's the same. I like goat cheese. Not everyone likes goat cheese. And if you're one of the guys in my DV group that does not like goat cheese, well, I'm sorry. You're going to have to sit through 10 minutes of goat cheese every class. But here's my promise to you right now. You don't have to eat it if you don't want to. These meditations are something that I'm offering for any of you to try who are interested in trying and really want to see if these can have this kind of transformative impact on you or not. Take a nap if you want to. It's designed for you to relax. And there are a lot worse things that you could be doing, right? Besides, however you really feel about this, that's where the real gold is. That's the true value. So don't hold back. Share how you feel. And now, put on your headphones, find a quiet space, let your breath settle in, and welcome to DV Brain Change Meditations, where we take 10 minutes to relax and reflect. Be sure to listen using earbuds or headphones to get the full benefits of the sounds that you're hearing right now. And maybe you'll enjoy thinking about these sounds going directly into your brain through your ears, working to relax you. Some people say that it feels like their brain is being gently stretched or massaged. All you need to do is sit and listen and breathe. Take deep breaths, whatever feels good to you. Some people like to count when they breathe in and when they breathe out. Shortly, I will share with you the topic we will be exploring today. You will hear a medium-high tone of 396 Hz, which some people believe helps to free your mind of shame and fear. And you will feel the tone gradually getting lower, ending after 10 minutes at 174 Hz which some people associate with deep healing of your nervous system. Pay attention to your thoughts, the air on your skin, gravity pulling on your shoulders, and the thoughts that rise up in your mind. Are you ready? A trigger is not a command. It's a spark. And what happens next, reaction or response, is not destiny. It's choice. This space between impulse and action is where your power lives. To pause, to breathe, to notice, and to choose who you are becoming, not just repeat who you have been. Something happens. A word, a glance, a tone, and suddenly you're there again. Heart racing, hands tightening, story forming. But now, breathe. Let that wave crest without crashing. Float just above it. Listen to the silence underneath. In this quiet, old patterns lose their grip. You remember. This moment is not that moment. This person is not your past. You are not your anger. You are the awareness that sees the anger. You are the pause before the flame. The space where the match hovers but never strikes. And from that space, something new begins. Not reaction. response. Choice becomes freedom. Your brain is not a stone tablet. It's a garden. What you water grows. The more you practice a thought, a breath, a pause, the deeper the path becomes. Habits are not fate. They are footsteps. And every step you take, again and again, lays track for who you become. Imagine your mind as a forest, dense and tangled. Imagine your mind as a forest. You've walked one trail so many times, it's become a trench. You've walked automatic so many times, it's familiar. A trench. Worn. Automatic. But today, you step off, just slightly. A new thought today. You step off. A slower breath, just slightly. A soft word. A new thought. It's harder at first. Branches in your way. No footprints to follow. It's harder at first. But you keep returning. Step by step. Again and again. That new trail begins to open by step. Light touches leaves again and again. Roots yield. That new trail begins to open. And soon, light touches. It's the path you take without thinking. The trench fades.